Were as big as the man himself. The news is unexpected as many of his accomplishments. Wilt Chamberlain died this past week. It was a sort of news that reached beyond sports and across the American landscape. He died at the age of 63. Why are so many of us so affected? Just pick up the NBA record book and have a reading from the book of Wilt. 4-time MVP, 7 straight scoring championships, 11-time the rebounding champ. But Wilt Chamberlain was much more than that. His very name was a metaphor for size and strength. And today, for the next 7 hours, ESPN Classic will remember Wilt Chamberlain, a giant legacy, beginning with Dick Schaap's one-on-one conversation. Then a real treat, Wilt against Bill Russell from the 1967 playoffs. Then a very special up-close Roy Firestone with Wilt. Then Vintage NBA hosted by Robin Roberts. An offering of classic sports legends and the 1972 NBA All-Star Game. And then coming up, I'll be joined by ESPN NBA analyst Fred Carter for his memories and thoughts on this remarkable game. We begin, though, the giant legacy with Dick Schaap.
Welcome to another edition of Schaap One-on-One. Up next, guest host Al Trautwig one-on-one with one of the most dominating centers in basketball history, Wilt Chamberlain.
A most special edition today because we have with us one of the most compelling athletes in our history. Wilt Chamberlain joins us. Wilt, welcome to Victory Yard. You have been in situations like we're going to have for the next half hour or so, thousands, countless times in your life. And I would guess that most times you walk away having heard all these questions, and you know everyone tries to be intelligent and ask Wilt the question of all time. But you must walk away so many times and say, they don't get it. They don't understand what I'm all about. So let's just start off with your definition of what you are truly all about. What makes you go?
Well, very, very competitive, but the competition that I seek is within. I'm always like pushing myself to do things, some of them rather stupidly, I may add, but I like to see just how far I can drive myself and what I can really make myself totally interested in. And once I decide to do something, I will not stop until I think I've done just about what I want to do in that thing. I think it's very natural for people to get confused about who I am and what I am and what I'm all about. I've always been painted as a villain, you know, and I love that. I love being a villain, and yet I really love people, so they don't understand that because I'm so imposing physically that a lot of people are somewhat afraid of me. I'm very, objective, and I'm very, very opinionated, and I have a big mouth, and I love to talk, and I love to put people on, so they don't know sometimes when I'm putting them on or whatever, however. And you know, when I play games, everyone watches me closely because they accuse me of cheating. Not exactly to my face, but they always, you know, because I win almost all the time, so they think I cheat all the time. And I love that because as long as they're looking for me to cheat, they're not concentrating on what they should be doing, so it gives me the edge all the time. I'm always looking for the edge.
Have you ever cheated?
Have I ever cheated? Yes.
When?
Well, at various times. Various times, you know. But I mean, I have to.
On an NBA court?
Oh, an NBA court. You know, maybe one time I did cheat, and it's like a little strange cheat job. I was playing against Swede Holbrook, who was taller than I am. Understand? And Swede was not really one of the greatest basketball players in the world, so the game was almost over. We were up by about 30 points and so forth. And the cheat was, I said to Swede, look, Swede, fake to the left and go to the right, and I'm going to let you go. You understand? You know, and so so Swede, unfortunately, he faked to the wrong way and went the wrong way. You know, but we managed to let him get the basket anyway. And I had about like 57 points, so he came down the other end of the court, and he says to me, Wilt, fake to the left and go to the right. I'm going to let you get the basket. I said, no, thank you, Swede.
People in their life, as they get a little bit older, when they're with people who they're close with, will frequently be in a situation where someone says, hey, remember that time when, and you really didn't remember it. It wasn't part of what you think about all the time.
Right.
As you got together at the All-Star game in Cleveland and the NBA celebrated the best 50 players of all time, did you have one of those times? Did you talk to anybody and suddenly remember a time in your life that you had forgotten?
Well, you know, I did talk to some people about a great many things, but most of them are dealing with stories like, you know, Billy Cunningham, who is a good friend of mine. I got Jerry Ward, who played 1 year with the 76ers, and so they were trying to make me remember a story that they lived over top of a deli, you know, and I used to come there, and I walked into their humble apartment, which was like really disgraceful.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, like a cot here and a cot there, and I said something like, well, I didn't know that white people live so badly, you know, and they kind of laughed, and we laughed, and they said that I went down, bought them some food, and brought it back upstairs, and I don't remember all that, except that we used to go down to the deli all the time and buy some stuff, but they try to make you remember those kind of things. But there are, you're right, there are many, many things that have happened in my life that some people can remember that I really don't. Some of the stories are unbelievable that I hear, and they come back to me.
A lot of your daily life, there are intrusions, people asking for your time. You've probably gone through your life with people asking you for a million favors when they're offering to give you just a handful of things, if you know what I mean.
Right,
there's more taken. That's part of the deal.
Right.
But when you players got together and celebrated these years together, and I saw it when the Knicks did it with the Celtics in New York, there looked to be genuine love of the moment. I mean, like a real, this is great, a real thanks NBA, whoever did this, really thanks.
Well, I think it was genuine, and that's what makes it really special. And most of these guys, you don't get a chance to see them, you know, in your daily routine of life. Some of them you do. But the thing is that it always is strange to me is that no matter how bitter foes you were, you know, when you're off the court, and especially now, it's like, you know, it's like a love affair. I mean, it really is, because we all shared the same type of feeling, and we did the same thing, and it's all part of our lives. And so when we see each other, we know we have empathy for each other and love for each other, and we know when we look at each other what we're all about. What we had to go through, what we had to live through, and the hardships, the joy, and so on and so forth. And we all kind of embody that, and when we see each other, it's like one happy family that did the same thing.
He's got the Overbrook High School jacket on.
Yeah,
City
right.
champs.
Yeah, cross country, you see cross country and track and field, and you're right, city champs. I hate to kind of put those years.
You were a distance runner?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
We are just getting started with Wilt Chamberlain, the one and only here on Classic Sports.
This ESPN Classic presentation.
Warming up to our chicken club. Burger King. Have it your way.
This is ESPN Classic.
We left you with the thoughts of the greatest 50 players of all time in the NBA getting together, and you, when I read it in the newspaper, I said, this can't be. You're meeting Michael Jordan for the first time?
Can you imagine that? Yeah.
I understand Michael was, at least from what I read, there was a moment of sort of human hesitation as the two of you came together. Did you sense anything?
Yeah. Well, he was over there doing something, and I walked over to him. Maybe I surprised him a little bit, you know, being big and intimidating.
Yes, you could do that to a person.
Yeah. So I just kind of wrapped my arms around him and talked to him for a second or two. But it is amazing, because the man's been playing now for 11 years, been out there for 12 years. But on his off time, he plays golf, avoiding the sand traps. I'm in the sand. I'm a volleyball player. I spend all my time trying to get into the sand traps. You understand? So we just socially, we just never had a chance to really meet, and I've only seen very few games since I've retired live. I watch tons and tons of games every day and night by satellite and on my TV thing. So no surprise, I was always looking forward to watching him play one time, and I'm still waiting for my first time to truly watch him play. I watched him in the All-Star game, but that's something different.
If the two of you were in a room together, if the situation was such you have a bottle of wine, some sort of very cordial situation, where do you think your conversation would focus, the two of you?
Well, you know, first, you know, and I don't think we talk about basketball that much, just saying. What I would like to know from him, because my life is so different than his, how he has to deal and what he has to deal with, and just being a person and trying to avoid all the things that he must have to try to avoid. See, I am so intimidating that I have no entourages. I have no bodyguards. I have none of the things that people today seem to have a great many of, you know. And I don't know how it would be to live that way.
I mean, he's at a different level of celebrity, isn't he? Only because of the different kinds of media exposure that he's been given. So that's what.
But yeah, but even that, so people can take that to different things. Otherwise, I know Bruce Springsteen. He goes and works up in the gyms I work on, so forth and so on. He's by himself. You understand? Whereas maybe another rock star or another singing star or whatever may have an entourage of people around him all the time. Some people feel comfortable with some buffer. And the buffer is usually people between them and their fans and the media or whatever. And other people don't feel comfortable with that. I remember going to Atlantic City a few years ago, and I was being like really besieged upon by a lot of people. And they said, "Look, we'll put three or four guards around you." I said, 3 or 4 guards? You kidding me? I mean, don't do that. I mean, I'd feel uncomfortable with that type of situation.
It was a great photograph of the eras of Lakers centers. So it was you, and it was Kareem, and it was Shaquille O'Neal. Talk to me about the interaction you had with Shaquille that day and what you learned about him as one of the modern...
Well, you know, I wasn't really a part of that so much as it was we did a Reebok ad, which I was not at Reebok, but he was, and we had all the centers there talking, and he was like he's very young. And I don't think that he has maybe a sense of, you know, of what he's all about yet and what we were all about. See, remember, Al, a lot of guys don't quite follow the sport as we did or as you may have, and they don't really know what certain people have done in the sport.
Exactly. They don't know the history.
Yeah, they don't really know the history, so they're not really maybe...
Oh, he once said of Lenny Wilkins, did he play?
Yeah, well, see, that's what I'm trying to say. I mean, I'm a history buff, and I find that rather unbelievable. That if I didn't know, I would maybe ask somebody else. You know, whether, you know, how, but that's not important to a lot of them. They're doing so many other things. I can start to tell you the ownerships of the teams that I played against, you understand, back that, you know, in the 50s and all the way back to 46 when it first started. Because, I mean, like, this is my life and this is what I'm doing, and I was involved in basketball and watching it and watching the great ones from day one. Now, remember all the things that he's involved in, whether it be rap, you know, rap singing and, you know, all the movies and all this. He doesn't really have time. But what was he doing when he was in high school? I mean, who was he looking up to? Maybe Dr. J, or so maybe never went down to the history. You know, history is bad news for a lot of young people. They don't like history, and it doesn't seem to have anything to do with their lives.
Stories go that the doctors told him not to travel because of his knee injury, and he was not part of that great celebration of the 50 players, and he was booed. Should he, at any cost, have been part of that? Should he have taken a train? Should he have done whatever possible to be part of that?
Without a doubt. You know, I don't know how bad he was hurt, and I'm sure I can't speak for that, but I don't see where his knee could have kept him from taking a plane ride to be a part of something. And I thought that was a direct slap in the face of all of us. The other 49 or 48 players who were there, you know, being representative. I would think that maybe a little later in life, 10 years, 20 years down the road,
regret it.
He's going to regret that, yes.
You know, ideas and inventions come.
As a kid coming out of college and starting to play with Wilt, it was just amazing. You know, to this day when I'm around him, I just can't believe the size of the man. He's 60 years old, and he looks like he still could play basketball.
Okay. It's got to be great to hear your contemporaries talk with such great respect. But let's deal with Billy Cunningham's observation there. Do you think, in a limited role, and this was talked about not too long ago, that you could come back and compete and contribute in today's NBA?
You know, well, they talked about it there at the weekend, you know, that a lot of reporters thought I could come back and play. And, you know, it has nothing to do with ego. First of all, what Billy is saying is I have a great deal of respect for what he was saying, except that when they're around me, they don't talk to me like that.
They always do that behind your back.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they're behind my back. But I like to believe I'm still very active in sports. I play a lot of racquetball and volleyball and paddle tennis and all these things. And I would think that in a limited role, if Alton Lister can come back for the Boston Celtics and play, when he's supposed to have a bad knee and bad this, yes, I could come back in a limited role. Yes, I really could. And the way I see some of these guys shooting foul shots, maybe I'll be the designated foul shooter.
Now, we'll talk about that in a different. You've written a book here, Who's Running the Asylum? Inside the Insane World of Sports Today. And it covers a lot of things that basically tell the story of sports being in a sad state of affairs.
Right.
As you talk about guys who can't shoot free throws and so on forth and on and on and on, what is the root of all the problem in sports as you see it today?
Well, in professional sports, for one, for sure, is the fact that they've been so successful, and the commissioners helped that to happen, and the athletes themselves have happened along in such a way that they've become showmen about what they're doing, and the fans have accepted that showmanship that they're able to do so splendidly. It's almost like the Harlem Globetrotters playing professional basketball, and that's what they've learned to do so well. But unfortunately, the dilution of the league has really made things to a point where the media and the fans have to now accept mediocrity. And that's really kind of a shame, because I think that we have a lot of talent out there, but maybe not enough for 29 and 30 teams. So that dilution has forced us to watch a lot of very, very mediocre to bad teams, and only very few very good teams, only one great team, the Bulls.
Right.
And so, like, who wants to watch the Bulls play? You know? There's so many ads out there right now. The question I'm asked all the time is, well, what about, you know, the NBA rating the high schools? They're not rating the high schools, but the question that should be asked is, has the NBA come down to the high school level?
Yeah, if a high school kid can come in and play in the NBA, what does that say?
What does that say? What does that say?
When you came out of high school, could you have played in that version of the NBA?
You know, I think probably so, only because I grew up playing against the greats of that time. Even in the NBA, I played against Neil Johnson up at Kutcher's Country Club. He used to be up there, and I played against a lot of pros, even when I was very, very young. And growing up in Philadelphia, where they had the greatest basketball players, along with New York City in the world, I was brought up in the mainstream of great, great basketball. So I was drafted, as you know, out of high school by the Philadelphia Warriors. It was a territorial draft, and the owner, Eddie Gottlieb, thought I was maybe going to somewhere else, and so he wanted to make sure that he got me. So in '55, I was drafted out of high school. I probably could have played and done fairly well.
This book obviously is, let's see, how many pages is it? It's 350 pages, so I'm going to say there are about 20,000 opinions in here of yours.
Yeah, of course.
But I'm only going to give you one. I'm going to give you one thing that you could change about sports today that would hopefully affect some change that I'm going to assume that you'd like to see. What could you do as the commissioner of sports?
Oh, as the commissioner. Well, the one thing that I would do is that I would make all the teams in the NBA have tickets available, good tickets available for fans at every game, meaning that there should be an allotment of tickets set aside for fans to come and buy, maybe 1,000, right there at the door. I mean, first come, first serve for the best seats, and not just everything is programmed for the very, very wealthy and the affluent companies who buy all the major seats and all the seats around the floor. And if you, the average Joe, who's a great basketball fan, wants to get a good ticket for you and your wife and you and your girlfriend for a special occasion, even though it may cost you a lot of money, you can't even do it.
Right.
So I would say the Knicks should have 1,000 tickets that are available, as the Los Angeles Lakers should have. So the commissioner, they should make that a must.
Wilt, as we talk about history, you have a love for it, I have a love for it, people who watch this network have a love for it. Unfortunately, a lot of the memories that we have, if we didn't see you play, were in black and white, because that's the way it's been recorded.
Right.
So as we have people dialing into sports history, watching this network and trying to figure out, you know, what was he all about? Boy, it's great that I get a chance to see him. Give me a living color explanation to a kid who's watching about Wilt Chamberlain, the player.
The player. Well, it depends on what time of my career he caught me, because as a rookie coming into the league, I was rather skinny, but always strong and always big, and I ran much faster and I jumped much higher and I did things a little bit differently. What he would see, though, is a person that sort of exemplified the average basketball player of the times, and that is that they were complete. They learned how to play the whole game, and the whole game is what we tried to show people that we could do, because if you had a weakness in your game, that would be exploited. Now, today, you have specialists. One guy's a point guard, one guy blocks shots, one guy throws the ball, one guy does it. You know, well, if you notice, though, the Michael Jordans and the Charles Barkley, they're not specialists. They do it all. And that's what makes them the great stars that they are. And so I think what he would see is a more complete basketball player than he probably sees today.
We'd like to welcome you to the Board of Champions here at Classic Sports.
Well, it's really my pleasure, and it's an honor, and something I totally believe in. As you know, I have a reputation for only doing what I really want to do. I love this one right here. I love this.
You are a man who says what he feels, and most people have this little room, I think, where thoughts go into, and there's a quality check. There's sort of a, should I say that, should I not? You don't have that, do you?
No. I come from the gut. It gets me in problems sometimes, in trouble, but at least I don't have to worry about, did I really want to say that, or did I manicure that a little too much?
Like in your first book, you know, the 20,000 women thing that got a lot of publicity. In your current book, you sort of take it back. You know, I didn't want to insult anybody who I've been with, blah, 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 blah.
Right. Yeah.
That's got to be mild trouble compared to what you consider to be real trouble.
Absolutely.
What was real trouble for Wilt Chamberlain?
Well, one of the real troubles with Wilt Chamberlain is you know, not even really known, was like when I came into the league. You know, I owned a nightclub, you understand? And I owned horses, race horses, and I wore a beard. And now all those things were against the rules and regulations of the NBA. And it was trouble because they wanted me to do away with my nightclub, which I was making more money at, Small's Paradise, and I was making playing basketball. Racehorses was not allowed because you're around gamblers and bookies and those kind of things, and all those kind of things. So they wanted to change what I thought had nothing to do with me playing basketball. And I had to really confront that, and it was touch and go, and I kind of like retired at the end of my first year because of it, and then I was talked into coming back and playing, and not that I didn't give up what I had, but I had to really address that.
Sort of a Joe Namath episode.
Yeah.
Can you relate then to a Dennis Rodman who's so much his own person that he's going to get in trouble and step on toes along the way, or is he, because he's done things that misrepresent the NBA on the court, crossed over a line?
Dennis Rodman, I think, is a character who believes strongly in himself and the right for himself to do whatever he feels is good for himself. As long as he thinks he's not hurting anybody else, I would imagine it's cool. And as long as he's not hurting anyone else, I think it's cool. But some of the things like, not, being part of the team when they come out and warm up and things of that nature, which is sort of team disrupting, I don't quite understand why he's allowed to get away with that. But the real thing with Dennis Rodman is I think that Dennis Rodman is reaching out for very, very much love that we need to give him. And
I've said that Dennis Rodman could do anything, literally anything, and we could pick up the newspaper tomorrow, forget whatever it is, and you could read that he did it, and you wouldn't be surprised, no matter what it was.
Whatever it was. But here's what surprises me, and it deals with Dennis Rodman, but not Dennis Rodman. Is the CEOs of the major companies in our world will use Dennis Rodman as a spokesperson for their product. And by doing so, they make him a hero to millions and millions of kids and millions of people. And the kids think, well, he must be doing something right, because otherwise why would they be using him, eating hamburgers or what have you.
Right.
So he can't be all wrong. He's got to be right, because these people who know what's going on are using him. So they're kind of saying it's okay to be Dennis Rodman. Now, I think it's okay to be Dennis Rodman, but those same people saying it's okay to be Dennis Rodman would probably never invite Dennis Rodman to their homes.
Oh, I don't think so.
Yeah, you understand? Yeah. So that hypocrisy right there is something that I really cannot deal with.
Kate couldn't believe any toothpaste could get her teeth whiter. Then she tried Aquafresh whitening with TriClean. As usual, she brushed every day. And now Kate can see the difference Aquafresh whitening made. Her teeth look whiter, making Kate a believer. Aquafresh whitening with TriClean gently removes stains without bleach, peroxide, or harsh abrasives to help restore teeth to their natural whiteness. Aquafresh whitening gets teeth stronger, brighter, and TriClean whiter.
Early light breaks through, music and dance calling you. Just need that mountain grown lift before you share your gift. Now there's rhythm and sound, making their hearts pound. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
So what you're saying is you can't change your oil every 3,000 miles because you're too busy. So you push it. Hey, it's your car. You want to learn the hard way? Be my guest. This is reformulated Quaker State. Protection beyond 3,000 miles. You ought to change your oil on time, but if you can't, can you say insurance? Quaker State. It's been tested. It works. What more do you need to know?
Buy Quaker State and get a hat or T-shirt from one of your favorite college football teams.
Dandruff, psoriasis, scalp dermatitis. If you ask all the dermatologists listed here to recommend a therapeutic shampoo, Neutrogena T-Gel would come out #1. T-Gel works on all 3 itchy, flaky scalp conditions. Neutrogena T-Gel, it works.
Tonight on ESPN. At 6, Syracuse versus Virginia Tech. At 9, Florida Auburn. And at midnight, kart racing. On ESPN2, a college football doubleheader. At 5, Pittsburgh takes on BC. At 8, Utah versus Air Force. And at 11, Sports Center. And on ESPN Classic. At 6, an NHL Classic. At 8, a heavyweight title fight. And at 9, college basketball classics. Do you have all the ESPN networks?
WiltsWorld.com? You have a website? Come on.
Well, wait a minute, I know it sounds sort of like you know, I'm fooling myself a little bit. But guess what? I went to, I know very little about this stuff. I'm just getting involved. And I tried to get my own name, you know, like, you know, Wilt Chamberlain. He said, sorry, it's gone, you know.
Somebody else has WiltChamberlain.com?
No, not .com, just my whole name. Yeah, WiltChamberlain.com. They have that and everything with Wilt Chamberlain all around. I had to come up with something. So I came up with Wilt's World.
And so what do people learn about Wilt when they dial in?
They'll get a chance to get some Wiltisms, or get a chance to get some biography of things that they wouldn't normally know. Like I was 22 inches, you know, long when I was born. You know, 8 pounds, 10 ounces,
stuff.
And different things that you wouldn't normally find out about. But we talking a lot of current stuff. They'll get a chance to know what number, you know, which we can talk about. You know, 800 number. 280-1776 to buy my new book. Right.
I think Wilt was cueing me to hold up the book.
Hold up the book.
There it is, right there.
Yeah.
Who's running the asylum?
That's right.
Is that long enough?
Yeah, and 280-1776. It's 800 number. You can buy it. So all those kind of information. So we're going to be getting involved in a whole lot of different things.
What's the #1 Wiltism of all time?
To me is you're never at your best until you're laid to rest. Now think about that a second. You're never at your best till you're laid to rest.
Well, that doesn't give me much to look forward to, does it?
Well, that's the way it goes. I mean, look at someone like Marilyn Monroe. When she was alive, she was just an average little star, and people had different things to say about it. But when you die, all of a sudden they tell you how great you were. I mean, you become the greatest of this, you're the greatest of that, and so on and so forth.
I'm bummed out now. That was pretty good. One more Wiltism.
How do you think? Okay, here's one for you. Every mother's crow thinks her child is white as snow. Now figure that one out. Yeah. Because that means that okay, that everyone thinks theirs is the best. You understand? I mean, whether you are from an era of a certain time, you think your team's the best, or Jack Dempsey was the best because you were from that time. But everyone thinks that theirs is the best. You understand? Either their kids always pure and whatever, or their teams that they root for is definitely the best because that's what they grew up with. So everybody thinks that theirs is the best. So when we talk about contemporary time versus yesteryear, and as classic sports deals a lot with yesteryear. That's what makes them so great, because now you're going to have a chance to really see whether your crow really can measure up to, the crows of the past, without being influenced by the media, the broadcasters, and the people who are livings are being earned from contemporary, times. Meaning is, why would someone who is doing a game for NBC, let's say, do nothing but applaud how great the players of the day are? Their checks kind of depend upon that. I mean, they're like salesmen, and they're selling the 97 game, like selling the 97 Oldsmobile. They're not worried about selling the 56 Oldsmobile or the 57 Oldsmobile. They're going to sell today's game, because that's what they can pay by, and they have to keep those people watching. So they're going to say all these wonderful things about teams and wonderful things about players.
Not all of them, though, Wilt. I mean, there are some that honestly talk about the game as being in trouble.
Oh, they do? Who are these people?
I've talked about it on the air, but I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. But I'm among a group of people that will openly discuss that.
A very small group of people. Then, if you willing to do that, because I don't really know. I don't really see. If I were here just once or twice, I would understand that. I mean, listen, the TV cameras. When they're watching an NBA game, if the stadium is not full, you know, they pan down low all the time and keeps them going, you know. But now when the house is filled, then all of a sudden the cameras are all over showing you the people screaming. I mean, the representation and the presentation of certain things are only done.
But if you ran sports, would it be any different?
Well, I would say yes. I would say definitely would be different, because I would want to acknowledge the fact that we're having a problem here and we must do something about it. And we aren't perfect, and this is what we're going to try to do to correct the problem. Understand? But they think by hiding the problem sometime, and also maybe creating things to camouflage the problem. Now, let me tell you what I mean about that. Mediocrity is being displayed because they would give you things like, oh, this guy had a triple-double. And they make you, the fan, think that he just did something spectacular. Some of these triple-doubles, if Jerry West or Oscar Robertson or Elgin Baylor had them, they would think they would have had the worst day in the world. They thought they just, oh, God, 10 points, 11 rebounds, or whatever, 10 assists. They said, oh, man, I stunk the joint up.
Right.
Understand? So, but they would make you think, everyone thinks when you hear triple-double, they think of something fantastic, right?
Well, these days it is.
All right, so you answered my question. You're right. And it is.
But that's good for you. It makes what you and the Big O and all those guys did, it makes it stand out all the more.
Well, yes, it does, but they don't say that. They don't. They keep that mute, Al. They keep that mute. They don't say that. I never hear Johnny Red Kerr, who does the Chicago Bulls games, and I listen to him all the time. And Michael will do something fantastic. Oh, Michael just had 49 points or 51 points, and he'll say, oh God, the greatest 51 points. But he'll never say, yeah, but Wilt Chamberlain had 130, 35 of those. Well, let me give you a Sports Illustrated quote from the coach of the Detroit Pistons, Daly, about a year or so ago, when he was asked about the greatness of the rebounding of Rodman.
Right.
And he said Rodman's the greatest rebounder that ever played the game. So the guy asked the question, says, well, what about Wilt Chamberlain? What do you think he said?
I don't know.
He said, well, Wilt was just bigger than everybody else. Then the guy said, well, what about Bill Russell? He said, oh, well, Bill Russell didn't have anybody to play against. You know, and that was his answer. Now, that's typical of what you may hear. Now, if you would see who was in the Hall of Fame, and there's, I don't think, but one center in the Hall of Fame of recent bench or the last 30 years that I didn't play against, and that's Bill Walton. All the rest of them I played against, every center that's in the Hall of Fame almost.
All right. Well, if there's one place we think you're going to get your credit and your due, it's right here on Classic Sports.
Well,
I think we're going to need a third edition of this.
I think it's about time. I'm not just talking about my due. Why I'm in love with Classic Sports is because it gives people a chance to see for themselves some of the things that we did. I mean, they don't even know. I'm laying in bed. Listen, I'm laying in bed watching one of my TV games, and Robinson from San Antonio gets a rebound, throws it out, and runs on the court, and the announcer says, "Can you imagine that? A 7-footer, going in the end by my mind." So I'm saying to myself, "Yeah, I can imagine that." In junior high school, I saw a guy do that. But,
all right, so the next show we do is going to be in your bedroom, and it's just going to be reactions to things Wilt heard on television.
Yeah, and I got some reactions, believe me.
When we continue, we're going to find out some of the other things about Wilt Chamberlain's life. This is Classic Sports.
Hey, Michael, John here. I'm hanging out, having a beer.
Plus, the Redskins roller coaster ride to the '87 Super Bowl. It's all this week on ESPN Classic. Are you old school?
This is ESPN Classic.
I do know in basketball that no one will average 50 points a game for an entire NBA season. That will never happen. The world will come to an end.
Is he right?
Well, Rick, I don't know, man. You ever watch Rick play? No, he's on my All-Star team. When I pick teams, just talking with the guys, they pick your guys, and I'll pick around. I got to take Rick Barry on my team.
Who else you taking in your starting five?
Well, now it changes a little bit because some of these guys you got to take, MJ. You understand?
You met him on's now. He's MJ.
Yeah, well,
right?
since I met him once, I got to take him. Plus, we need someone to pay the rest of the guys' salaries and stuff. And MJ's going to do that for us. No, I mean, there's a lot of guys I like, but I've always liked Rick Barry.
I want to know more about you. What's your house like?
Well, I am very, very fortunate. I had a chance to design my own home in Los Angeles. I've been living in there now for close to 25 years. There's no right angles in my house. Understand? Now, as a builder, you got to understand that, and you got a chance to do some things. mean, like there's no square rooms or rectangle rooms. Everything is at a 45-degree angle, and I believe in pyramid energy type of things. What happens when you build like that, you have a lot of waste of space and so forth. But I got a lot of glass and a lot of rock and a lot of things, and it's a very nice place to live. Lots of room, lots of greenery inside and outside. I got
mirrors,
swimming pool,
lots of TVs.
Yeah, well, lots of TVs. Yeah, but I got a swimming pool that comes through my living room, you know, so I can do some things. But it's very innovative and it's very nice. It's sometimes maybe intimidating to some people because not that I built things just for my size, but like the chimney place in my living room goes up 55 feet, and it's built with Bouquet Canyon. You got I don't know how many thousands of tons of stone that's in the chimney place alone.
What kind of accommodations did you make for your size in the house?
You know what? Only one.
The shower?
Well, shower, yeah. I'll take that back. The shower, because I got a lot of hairs and higher, but only one major accommodation I made in my house.
That is?
The John.
What? Okay, you got me. What did you do?
What we did very simply is that, Johns all come in standard size.
Yes.
So we built a platform for them, like you would put on a king on a throne.
So you didn't have to stoop down to everyone else's level.
Right. There you go.
Now, of all the things in the house, what's the most prized possession that you've got?
Well, the thing that people find the most fascinating to them, which is something that really is not that fascinating, but in my bedroom, I have the roof slides open. So you can push a button and the whole roof will come just wide open, and you can sleep under the stars, or you can get your sun, suntan at 10 o'clock and all. And it's sort of fascinating to watch, and you push I always want to put a little music track with it, so we go, and the dome just,
right?
Yeah, So it slides open, and it really is kind of fantastic, But, and I have a room in there, which is a TV, which is actually a reading room. But I have a section of my house that have guest rooms, and one of the
like
guest
for me when I come.
Right. And one of the guest rooms is really a water bedroom, but the whole room is a bed. Has like a 9-foot circle water bed in the middle.
Are we getting to that 20,000
No,
thing again?
No. I'm just telling you about this. Is just a pleasure. You can lay back and read. You can watch TV. We call it the do it room.
If I go into the kitchen and I open the door of the refrigerator,
right?
Am I going to get a secret of why you're 60 and look as great as you do? Is there an answer in there?
I don't think so. But I
know we've talked about corned beef sandwiches.
Yeah.
You like
God.
me. So
I'm dying for one right now. But listen, what I do, I drink at least a gallon of lemonade, fresh squeezed lemonade every day.
How did that start?
Well, I used to drink milk and so on and so forth a lot.
That was your first job when you were 5 years old?
Right, that's right. And so I've had this great ability to consume a lot of liquid because I sweat a great deal. And when I'm out there playing volleyball and so on and so forth, and living in L.A., what I did was I have lemon trees in my grove, lemon trees and orange trees on my property. So I had to put those lemons to use. You understand? So I just started and I got this thing because I make my own lemonade, and it's really a routine you have to do. I won't go through it right now, but I make the best lemonade in the history of the world.
All right, well, you tease me now. What's the key? What's the key?
Well, the key is to get the oil out of the skin, not out of the rind. The oil.
Okay.
To get the oil, the essence of the oil out of the lemons. So it's not just the juice. So after you get the juice out of it, you take the lemons and you put them in a little bowl, and then you kind of mash them down a little bit to get the oil out of the skin.
So now you put, how much oil are we talking about?
Oh, well, you can feel it. Once you get it, you'll see it. The rind will get really, really slippery, and you just mash it for about 3 or 4 minutes. But you don't want to mash it too hard because you don't want to get to the pulp. You want to mash it just enough to get the oil out of it for 3 or 4 minutes in water, and then you do that in another little basin of water, so you make sure you get all the oil out of it, and that gives you the essence of taste. And then you add what you want to add.
Just like that, we're the Food Channel. When we come back, the secrets of Philly cheesesteaks and what makes them great with Wilt Chamberlain in a moment.
Giving your deck a facelift is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Creating the perfect patio is a snap, step by step. With decks, porches, and patios, you can get step-by-step help.
And I've been told moments ago, not asked, I've been told, and of course if Wilt asks, we or tells, we do it. You want to ask me a question?
Yeah, I do, because you watched a lot of sports for a long while. In retrospect, today's game, if you had to bring one thing back, change is inevitable, but sometimes it's better to change back in some ways. So if you had to change back from yesterday to today, let's say in basketball, what would be the one thing you would probably do?
I think I'd bring back the purity of competition that I saw in athletes when I was growing up. I mean, guys made money, but they didn't make over-the-top money, so they could still relate to the average person. And I think for the most part, they played because they loved the game. They loved the competitive fire. They loved what it did for them. And fans could relate because they weren't dealing with some rock superstar. They were dealing with a guy who they still rooted for because they wanted him to win. And I think that's what's missing. That's what I would bring back. How's that?
Well, that's really commendable. Except that who's going to give up that money that they're now making right now?
Well, you didn't say that it was going to happen.
Okay.
It was pie in the sky stuff.
And do you really think, though, that is the money that's made the difference is taking the competition away?
I think it changes the competition. I think it's real easy to not kill yourself about the championship when you're living lavishly.
I totally agree with you. I'm just giving you a hard time. I totally agree with you. With one addition is that you have to do away with those 10-year contracts, those no-cut, no-trade contracts.
The rookie salaries have got to go.
Yeah, they got to go.
You can't do that.
Because when you take away all the inspiration, then whenever things go a little bit bad for them, they just say, well, to heck with it. And saying, you know, I don't care. They can't trade me. They can't cut me. If they want to get rid of me, I got 9 years of salary coming.
I mean, I don't hear from some of the guys who are making a lot of money, I've got to have a championship the way you probably felt you had to have a championship.
You had to have one. Yeah, had to have one. But I don't know whether that's their fault.
No, I don't know that it's anybody's fault. It's a slow.
Well, it's got to be somebody's fault, but I don't know whether it's altogether the athlete's fault. What I'm trying to say, you know, I think if you got to, like, you know, and believe me, don't take us the wrong way. I love animals, and I have dogs, right? You know, and my dogs are well trained and well behaved around people and so on and so forth. And I believe that kids should be given a strong, stern, you know, way of teaching them how to respect their elders and so on. So I believe in all those kind of things, you know. And I think that we have not given a lot of athletes a chance to let them know that they have to, like, be a certain way. We got to demand a little bit more from them. If we accept mediocrity from them, that's all they're going to give us.
If I said to you, hey, Wilt, you know what? I'm better than you at blank.
Right.
Wouldn't you immediately want to prove me wrong?
Absolutely.
You would, right?
Yeah, that's the way I am. Yeah.
So if you played Bobby Fischer in dominoes, did you won?
I won. Yeah,
Why
absolutely.
not chess? You played the great Bobby Fischer at dominoes, but not chess.
Well,
that doesn't seem very Wilt-like to me.
Well, okay, no. Hear me out. It would have been no competition. I would not have asked Bobby Fischer to play me in basketball. No competition. So I wanted something that we both had a chance to really show our skills at. I mean, I have no chance against Bobby Fischer in chess. He had no chance against me in basketball. So we tried to find some mutual ground, you know. And dominoes is a thinking man's game. It's a game with numbers, and of course, no one can think any better than a chess player. So he asked me for the dominoes. I want to play backgammon, because backgammon has a lot of luck, you know, at least from the beginning, you understand? And almost anybody can win. You could be a backgammon master and get beaten by some guy who throws double sixes right away.
I've always wanted to know from you, I was a big fan of the ABA, and that played a little role in your life with the San Diego Conquistadors, and you were like the player coach or something, but you weren't always there, and it never struck me as though you really had the commitment to that stage of your life. It always seemed to me that, well, they're going to pay me a check, and if they're dumb enough to do that, I'll get. Tell me what happened.
Well, I think you're definitely wrong there.
Good.
Yeah, and let me tell you why. I signed for big money with the Conquistadors to play basketball, and I was kept from playing basketball by Jack Kent Cooke and the Lakers. You know, so the coaching thing was just thrown in that I would do something to just maybe sustain that year of not playing, because they had to pay me, you understand? And really, Stan Allback was really supposed to be the coach. So the aloofness that you may have seen was really nothing more than what I was supposed to be doing, you understand? I mean, and so I was indeed named the coach of the team, but not really. And so anything I was given there was extra, because I was signed to play, and if I didn't play or didn't have to play, then they still had to pay me. So no, I was definitely committed, and I enjoyed that year of having fun with the Conquistadors and with Stan Albeck, who was, as I said, was really mainly the coach. But I was just mainly coaching Nate.
See, that was back when sports was pure. When we come back with Wilt Chamberlain, we're going to go around the world.
This is Mr. Taylor's room. Have you seen this guy?
No.
All business. I mean, he gets faxes all the time. Never loosens his...
This is ESPN Classic.
I always wanted to know, you went through that stage of your life where you always wore the silk cutout shirt.
Yeah.
What was that all about?
Well, you know, when you spend years building up your body, you know.
Oh, so that was just a show-off
Yeah, it's
thing.
a macho stuff. I mean, we're all macho, you know. So, but you know, it's a comfortable, easy look. Understand? So when I was younger, I was like Walt Frazier. I was a fashion plate. I wore the mohair suits, and I was like really decked all the time, you know. So, and then I moved to Hawaii. You see, and I became like a local Hawaiian, you know, and we just put on something really easy, and that became
That was very subtle. That was very,
yeah.
Okay.
So that became very easy. So really, it was just an easy way to be.
Okay, if I was going to travel around the world, what stops would I have to make if you were going to plan it?
You'd have to start off in Italy, where all the great food in the world seems to rest and be, you know. And,
that's good.
And also places like Firenze, because I love art, and to go to see David and things, and go to Rome and see the Colosseum. But also like Eastern Europe. I mean, I'm very saddened about Yugoslavia, because it's one of my favorite places, and Dubrovnik and Split and some of the islands. I have a lot of Slavic friends and so forth and so on. So it's been a tough few years with what's going on over there, and I love that very much. Africa, Alexandria as a city in Cairo, because I love as the pyramids and Egyptology, and so we kind of like have to go there, and history is whatever. Now, where I have not been that I would like to go is I've been invited by you know, the King of Bhutan to go up there like in the Himalayas, just you know, and maybe like look for the Yeti. You understand? See if they get a real confrontation. You understand?
Wow.
Yeah, you understand. But traveling is very much a part of my life. And the one thing, Al, that I really regret the most is that when I was a kid, I didn't take as many foreign languages as possible.
Yeah, there are so many things you'd love to do that
Yeah,
in terms of knowledge. We got a little bit less than a minute left. Best time of your life? Not now, some other time. When you're looking back on it, boy, you wish you could have just sucked it all in for how great it was.
For me, the best time of my life was Overbrook High School from 1953 to 1955.
Why?
Because we were all a big family at Overbrook High School, and we loved each other, and I loved the school. I loved learning, and high school was just the best time.
I have 10 seconds left. What is the key thing to making a good cheesesteak? We never got to that.
Well, you got to be in Philadelphia, number one. That's the key.
I can't do it here?
No. The key thing is you got to go to Philadelphia. That's the key.
Awesome, Wilt.
Thank you.
Today, as always, he's Wilt Chamberlain.
Well, a great opportunity to hear Wilt at ease with Dick Schaap. I'm joined now by Fred Carter, our ESPN NBA analyst, and a fellow Philadelphian. You from the same city as Wilt was, and you played, of course, in the league. When you look at the numbers, I called it the NBA record book, the book of Wilt. You look at those numbers, 40-some-odd records. Which numbers stand out?
Oh, Bob, there's so many that stand out. After all, 50 points a game, 100 points in one ball game, and all those things tell me that it requires a tremendous amount of stamina. After all, you know, as Wilt said, nobody likes Goliath. That means the referees had that David and Goliath syndrome, where the little guys would get away with murder. They'd get away with holding the big guy, pushing him. Jerry West said it was a dirty league, it was dirty basketball. I know it. The forearms that hit you everywhere. So Wilt had to withstand that, to average 50, to score 100, and then, Bob, as you said, to grab 55 rebounds in a game, and teams don't get 55 rebounds.
Well, one season he actually averaged more than 48 minutes a game because he played all the overtimes. When you factor it in, more than 48 minutes a game. 7 feet plus, 300 pounds plus. You see that around the league. Now, you never saw it back in the 60s and 70s except for Wilt.
And you didn't see it anywhere. As a matter of fact, in the playgrounds in Philadelphia, they would line the playgrounds just to watch the big fella play. I remember playing against him and walking out there. I was intimidated. His forearms were bigger than my chest. And so I know this big guy was big. I averaged 8 points a game against the Lakers. Why? Because the big guy back there with 2 tennis rackets, he intimidated everybody.
Right. Certainly so much of Chamberlain's greatness stands on its own, but when you match him up against Bill Russell, it really moves into the realm of historic keepsake. And as we move ahead here on A Giant Legacy, you'll have a chance to be right there in 1967. Bill Russell, at that point, 9 times an NBA champion. Wilt still looking for that first championship. You'll be there for the NBA postseason.
Here at VMI, we were asked to try the Norelco Advantage for 21 days. There was quiet dissension.
Classic. It was March 2nd, 1962 in Hershey, Pennsylvania. That was the date and place when Wilt Chamberlain scored his 100 points in a game. When the game ended, the game ball vanished. A kid by the name of Kerry Ryman ran off with it. He's now 51 years of age. He's had that ball all these years. The next day he took the ball out. He was playing with it on a playground. It is scuffed up to heck and back, and he's had it for all these years. And he said the other day when he learned that Wilt Chamberlain had passed away, if there was one thing I could do, if I could get that ball into Chamberlain's casket, I would like to do that. Wilt, of course, is near the top of Sports Century's countdown. Now, here's an excerpt from Sports Century's appreciation of this mythic figure.
You really can't tell how big he is until you actually see him. He shook my hand, and my hand disappeared, and I'm just going, I don't believe this.
Wilt was simply, a man-child in a game where it was just simple. He got 55 rebounds in a game.
Wilt averaged 50 points a game for a full season. 50 points a game.
I learned a lesson early against Wilt. When I was a rookie, I blocked one of his shots, and he blocked every shot that I took the next 5 times.
Lenny Wilkins cast off a shot that appeared to be 3 feet above the basket. And Wilt jumped up and caught this ball with one hand. The referee called goaltending. And I hollered at him, how could you call that goaltending? And he says, Guy, what I just saw is not humanly possible.
Wilt Chamberlain played 80 games one year and averaged over 48 minutes a game.
He never fouled out of a professional basketball game in his entire career.
He was the only guy that could change the landscape in basketball, change the rules. Offensive goaltending, defensive goaltending.
That widened the lane. The free throw shooter had to release the ball behind the line. Wilt could take off from the free throw line and dunk the foul shot.
I was extremely impressed with his demeanor. He never got flustered, he never got mad.
Wilt was a nice guy, sometimes to his detriment on the court. He was afraid of being large. That's the paradox of it. He didn't want to be the ogre.
There was a sense that he didn't want to hurt anybody, that he was going to be called the bully. Always afraid that he was going to be fee-fi-fo-fum.
He was too nice a man. I can't tell you how many times I watched him go up for a dunk, and someone would put their hand within the cylinder trying to block a shot, and Wilt would let up because he knew he could break the man's arm.
Look at him. He's that big. If you lose, it's, how could he lose a guy that size?
We continue along with Fred Carter here on A Giant Legacy. He heard it everywhere he went, didn't he? Only 2 rings, you're not a winner. Russ is a winner. It was a constant refrain.
And it was a constant refrain that ate at the big fella, unfortunately, because those that knew and understood the game, I'm talking about players and coaches, etc., they knew what it took to win in terms of supporting cast. If you take what the Boston Celtics had, and all those guys are in the Hall of Fame now, and the players that Wilt play with over the times, when he played with the type of team that had the talent to win, they were 68-13 in Philadelphia, which is pretty darn good. But the other times where the big fella then had to carry his team. So you take a look at Julius Erving, didn't win a title until he got Moses Malone. David Robinson did not win a title until he got Tim Duncan, and you can go on and on. Oscar did not win a title until he joined up with the Kareem. So therefore, it's chemistry and personnel to win titles.
Such a physical and defensive force on the entire court. Johnny Green told the story. In fact, it was echoed in that piece by Billy Cunningham. Green thought one day he had blocked Chamberlain, but he knew in his heart Chamberlain had pulled back. He walked into the locker room after the game and thanked Wilt for the act of sportsmanship because obviously his arm could have been broken. It began a friendship, but I imagine a number of players around the league, the crowd thought they had a block on Wilt, but he just pulled back.
That's Wilt Chamberlain. That's the type of personality that he is. I remember he walked into the locker room in Philadelphia. I was the head coach. My players were there. And he looked at me and said, "Doggy, how you doing?" That's Wilt Chamberlain.
Well, as we continue, an absolute treat. Wilt in his prime against a 9-time NBA champion, Bill Russell. Wilt looking for his first ring.
Nights in white satin. Imagine owning all your favorite AM radio hits for just $12.99. Presenting AM Gold. 43 fantastic hits for an unbelievable $12.99.
In a little while from now.
Thursday, smooth shooting southpaw Chris Mullin looks back at the career.
Because beginning with his rookie season, the Boston Celtics had won 8 straight titles. So by the spring of 1967, Bill Russell had 9 rings, and Fred Carter. This rivalry, Russ, Chamberlain, Boston, Philly, was a potboiler at full strength as we join this action.
And Bob, it was really boiling over. And after all, everybody was watching the clash of the Titans, the big man game, how they played down in the paint. No one was concerned about how the game was played around the perimeter. They're watching to see these two big guys go at it. I watched it. I was a sophomore in college at the time, rooting for the big fella.
Watch it from Mount St. Mary's. So in '67, Chamberlain still thirsting for that first title. The road to the NBA championship went right through the Celtics. Sixers won the first 3 games of these Eastern Finals, but they are trailing here in Game 4 at halftime, 66-60. We'll be joining ABC Sports coverage. Interestingly, there was an announcer strike, so the producer and the director for the game are actually calling the game. Chet Forte and Chuck Howard are your announcers, and Chet Forte, a former collegiate player of the year from his days at Columbia, they're on the call as we join.
Center jump. Start of the second half. Boston leading by 6, 66-60.